Hey, come on now, buckle up. It's versus time, guys. Let's go. Whether you're in Disney's California Adventure in California or over at EPCOT in Florida, you have the opportunity to stand in a line, hop aboard a car, buckle up, and drive around for a while. The biggest difference being that the cars over in Radiator Springs Racers in California are alive and have faces and are sentient, which is a little concerning, but the question still stands. Which is better, Radiator Springs Racers in California or Test Track over in Florida? In 1999, a ride opened in EPCOT on top of what was previously the World of Motion. This General Motors sponsored ride was called, and is still called, Test Track. However, when it opened back in 1999, it had a crash dummy testing cars for safety kind of vibe to it. Supposed to be educational in the way a lot of the early EPCOT rides were. You would get in a car, go through different tests that the car would perform, and you yourself were playing the role of the crash test dummy. But you can forget all about that, because whether or not you like it better than what's currently in Test Track, it's gone now. So we're not talking about it today. We're talking about the renovation that happened in 2012, where Test Track was changed into this weird sci-fi Tron kind of vibe, still testing a new car's performance abilities, but lots more neon lights. In the same year, 2012, over in California, Radiator Springs Racers opened to the public, taking guests through the world of Cars, the Pixar movie. Both of these rides are absolutely incredible and have a lot more history I could go into, but the reason we're here today is to have these rides battle. So they're gonna put on their boxing gloves, they're gonna take it to the ring, and we're gonna decide which ride is better. For round one, we're kicking things off comparing the exteriors of the ride, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know why we need to do this. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but anyways, Test Track, you approach these big metal grates going above you. There's a sign that says Test Track. There's a weird car thing that's blue, and you can kind of see cars driving around the edges. And that's the exterior for Test Track, but we go over to California Adventures, Cars Land. Wow, okay. You approach Radiator Springs Racers. Let's forget about the rest of Cars Land, but you approach Radiator Springs from either side and see Ornamental Valley, one of the most beautiful creations Disney has ever made. You feel like you are A, in the movie Cars, and B, in a real Red Rock place like the Grand Canyon or Utah or something. I guess the Grand Canyon is largely in Utah. The ride is striking though. It's stunning, it's spectacular, and other splendid, superb, wow. There's a lot of S words that mean good, and they all apply to Radiator Springs Racers. It is one of the highest budget rides. It is the most expensive ride in California Adventures, and one of the most expensive Disney rides ever. We don't know exact numbers, but they spent a lot of money just to make this facade of the ride, and it is really beautiful. So it goes without saying, the point for the exterior goes right on over to Radiator Springs Racers. Round two will take us past the terrifyingly large number on the standby wait time and into the queue itself. Starting with Test Track, it's kind of a dimly lit indoor queue, not super exciting, at least initially, but it's supposed to represent the future of like a car designing studio, and it does preview what the ride's gonna be about, building cars based on 4 main criteria: capability, efficiency, responsiveness, and power. Now, these things don't actually play a huge role in the ride itself, but the queue is about to get really interesting, because after passing weird floating pieces of cars that don't have a real purpose, you get into the design studio. And now this might be the most unique thing in any Disney queue ever. And let me talk about this for a bit. You get in, when it's your turn, you go in with a group, and every person riding the ride approaches essentially a big tablet, a big touchscreen in front of them that allows them to design a car based on those 4 criteria. They can pick certain pieces, the look of the car, the wheels, the size of the car, and build a car, which is fun. It's a great way to pass time in line, better than standing in one spot, or I guess slowly moving and looking around. You get to stand in one spot and interact with the screen. But beyond just a silly little game, it actually saves to your Magic Band or your ticket if you don't have one, which you then scan as you board the ride, and the car you built, the stats of the car you built are measured on the ride in a very cool, unique, interactive way. Again, the way you build the car doesn't actually have impact on the ride itself. My family tested some theories about that last time we were there, such as the most powerful cars will make you go faster at the end of the ride. Not entirely true, or true at all, but it's fun all the same. I think that's a really unique, fun queue. But now looking over at Radiator Springs Racers, you are still going through the Ornamental Valley. The queue is almost entirely outside in one of the most beautiful atmospheres in any Disney park, kind of taking you through some gimmicky Route 66 style attractions like a glass bottle house. You can see the fountain there, the Radiator Springs themselves, and it's a pretty unique, fun queue, but I don't know, the immersion is there and it looks great, but that standby especially, I've never actually stood in the standby myself because it's almost always at least over 60, 90, 120 minutes. It's a long queue, it's a hot queue, there's not a whole lot of cooling off to do besides a couple fans that got blowing at you, and it's not entirely exciting. So this round is close. This is, you know, the one that you might really disagree on, but I think I'm gonna give the Q point to Test Track just for that unique interaction that you can't find in any other Disney ride. Okay, so you've done your time, you've waited in line, and now you're finally boarding the ride. Both of these attractions are kind of split into 2 sections of the ride, so we're gonna start out with the first half, the dark ride portion. Test Track, like I said, is nowadays kind of this weird Tron future testing room sci-fi vibe. I don't know what to call it. A lot of you are still nostalgic for the old crash test dummy style. And you know, I think that was really fun too. I think it was a great good time, but like I said, it's gone. For the sake of this video, we're gonna forget about it. I don't actually have a real preference either way, but the Tron vibe is fun. It's this weird, you go through testing the different capabilities of the car, such as avoiding a crash, going through rough and rugged terrain, things of that nature, all while in this dark, neon lit space. It's fun, you get to pick up some good speed in there, you're immersed in this weird sci-fi world, and ultimately the dark ride portion of the ride is genuinely a very good, fun time as you get to see the different stats of everyone in the vehicle, how they built their cars and how they stack up against each other. It's quite fun, you kind of compete against the designs of the other people in your car. Radiator Springs Racers though, again, one of the most immersive Disney attractions of all time. There's actually a story to the ride. You are a racer going to the big race of the day. You speed into town, almost hit a truck, get pulled over by the sheriff, told to slow down, meet Mater, go into town. It's really fun. And there's even a bit of randomness in the ride once you're in Radiator Springs itself, which is beautiful, by the way. You get to walk through it at daytime outside, but then you get to go in it again on the ride at night with the actual cars talking to you. And then you get a choice to either, well, you don't get the choice, but you get randomly selected to either go get new tires or a new paint job. And that's really fun. It's really immersive. The dark ride portion of the Radiator Springs Racers ride is one of the best dark ride portions of any Disney ride ever. It does have a downside though. That ride has such a high capacity with cars going so fast that oftentimes the animatronics won't quite reset the way they're supposed to. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about that, and I've experienced it myself. But granted, you know, given everything is working correctly and you get a good fluid roll through the ride, I don't know what I'm talking about. Assuming everything goes well, Radiator Springs Racers definitely has the better dark ride portion. Even if a couple things don't go perfectly well, Radiator Springs dark ride is better than that of Test Track in my opinion. So this third point is going on over to Radiator Springs. So you get through the end of the dark ride portions of the ride and you are shot outside to the roller coaster climax of the ride. In Test Track, this is the power test. The doors open and you rocket out of that door, going up to 65 miles an hour, which I believe, last I checked, is the fastest Disneyland ride, Disney ride in general, ever built at this point. So up to 65 miles an hour, you're going fast. You can feel the wind in your hair. It's a blast. The downside being is it takes you out of the park. It really does break immersion. You can see, you know, a cast member parking lot. It's kind of interesting, but again, 65 miles an hour is fast and it is fun. Radiator Springs Racers, however, this is the race portion of the ride. The downside being the max speed on Radiator Springs is only 40 miles an hour, which I didn't really process until I had looked into that. It always feels pretty dang fast, but Test Track is definitely faster. Radiator Springs, however, has the advantage of being a race. Another ride vehicle will pull up alongside you, or you'll pull up alongside it, and you'll race, and you'll be going, you know, back and forth who's winning. It's randomized, so the winner is never one side or the other. It's random, and at the end, you'll, you know, by a couple feet, one vehicle will win in front of the other, and whether you win or lose, it's a blast, because the whole time, whether they're strangers that are usually strangers or not, you're catcalling over to the other car and, you know, doing this. You know, this is what I do when I ride rides. Typically, I do something kind of like this when I ride rides, and it's a blast. Really, I like the interactivity. As I gave the point to Test Track for the cue for the interaction, this is definitely a point of unique interaction in Radiator Springs Racers, which is why the point for the roller coaster exterior part of the ride goes to Radiator Springs. Before we wrap things up here, I do need to assign a bonus point. At the end of Test Track, you get off and the ride doesn't quite stop there. You can use your magic band to scan in your car model and stack it up on a big screen against all the other cars that day, which if you go all in on something stupid like power, your dumb looking car can be floating up there for everyone to see with whatever name you give it. And then you go past that into an interactive room where you can do various things, again using your own car to compete against other cars in little mini races and things. It's fun. There's a lot more to do after the ride ends, whereas Radiator Springs Racers, the ride ends and you walk out and that's it. And that's fine, that's all you expect for a ride, but I am giving a bonus point to Test Track for that added layer at the end of the ride that they didn't have to include, but the fact that it's there does make a difference. And we do have a winner, despite the bonus point thrown in there at the end. Radiator Springs Racers coming in with 3 points to Test Track's 2. And I do genuinely think Radiator Springs is the better ride. I love Test Track dearly, with all my heart I do. I think it's a blast. It's an incredibly well done, fun ride, whether or not you like the old or new version better. But either way, it just can't compare to that modern, new Disney innovation and immersion. You know, I have mixed feelings about properties like Cars and other Disney movies being used as rides, but when it's done as good as Radiator Springs Racers, you will not hear me complain about it. It's an amazing ride. I kind of want to go ride it right now, actually. If I wasn't like, you know, 1,200 miles from the park, I probably would. Radiator Springs taking the win in this here versus. Tell me which versus you would like to see next. Answer the poll right up there. There's the eye. Click it. Tell me which one's next. There's still plenty more verses to do, though I could run out someday. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for watching this week's Disneylander. I'm actually going to take a week off next week. I'm going on a bit of a vacation and won't have time to record and edit another video. So I will see you in 2 weeks with a brand new Disneylander. Until then, have a good one. You know, last week I told you to give me some outros and then I decided to not do any of them. So, bye. Hey, come on now, buckle up, it's versus time. Oh gosh. Hey, come on now, guys, buckle up, it's versus time. Hey, come on now, buckle up, it's versus time, let's go.